My name is Sam Hamilton, and I may not look like much, but I was once a much younger man, and I was a hell of a horseman. In fact, I was the top rider for the Pony Express out of Sacramento, and there's a lot of monuments in California with my name on them to prove that. Well, some of you might know something about the Pony Express from cowboy movies, but it weren't that glamorous. It was hard and dirty work, but it paid good, $50 a month. And then riders, they show them as these wild young bucks, but that wasn't me. I was 35 years old, but I knew horses. I knew how to get the most out of them without hurting them or injuring them, because we had to ride them hard and fast. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the Pony Express. You see, back in 1860, the United States was just as wide as it is today. But to get news from the East Coast out to us Westerners, well, that could take months. It had to go by boat around South America, or there was a stage line way down south. Well, come 1860, it kind of looked like there might be a war between the northern states and the southern states over slavery. And Washington, D.C. needed to talk to California because California was a free state. But there weren't no railroad or telegraph, so they came up with this idea of a Pony Express, which would be a relay of horses and men from St. Joe, Missouri to Sacramento, California, 2,000 miles over some of the toughest land there is, the deserts, highest mountains, and they're going to do it in 10 days. And by golly, we did it. Well, got to tell you why that is so doggone hard. Well, a good horse, you can only run him hard for maybe 10, 15 miles. Then you got to rest him, you got to water him. Well, we didn't have time to do all that because we had to get across that country in 10 days. So we had to have 190 stations across this 2,000 miles with men and horses at each station. A rider would get the mail at one place. They'd ride 80, 100 miles, probably change horses 7, 8 times, hand off to the next guy. And how those guys running those stations out in the middle of the desert, how they got water and hay to them horses, I don't even know. But you probably want to hear about them monuments, so I better tell you about one of them. You see, I was the first rider to ride, very first mail ride into Sacramento from the east. So I pick up the mail out east of Placerville, a place called Sportsman's Hall, about 12, 15 miles east of Placerville. And I get into Placerville about 2 o'clock, and they say they're going to hold the boat until 5 o'clock. Well, I guess I better tell you about the boat, I guess, because you see, we rode horses from St. Joe to Sacramento, but at Sacramento, they put the mail on a steamboat, went down the Sacramento River through the various bays to San Francisco. Well, they're going to hold the boat till 5 o'clock, and I probably would have made it, except I hadn't even got to Sutter's Fort yet, and there were already 20, 30 guys yelling and hollering, hooping, riding along as hard as they could with me, shooting their guns in the air, and they were shooting up so much dust and dirt, I could hardly breathe. I had to put my neckerchief up, but my horse didn't have no neckerchief, and he was struggling. And then to get into town, it was even worse. They had a couple cannons they were shooting off. There was 2, 3 bands. People were cheering, shooting their guns in the air. That horse was getting pretty spooked. I barely got him down to the water, but I did. But it was a couple minutes after 5. But I didn't get to do no celebrating because that horse, he needed some work. I had to take him down to Wright Meyer's stable down on K Street, and we had to work that horse over. We had to rub him down and walk him for 2, 3 hours before we finally got his lungs cleaned out, and we saved that horse. He was a good roan. Well, there's some other rides I could tell you about. I could tell you about the time I led the manning the horses out in the Nevada territory to rebuild the stations after the Paiute uprising. And I could tell you about the first ride to the east out of Sacramento. See, I was a rider on that one too. Well, mail gets in Sacramento middle of the night sometime. I can't remember what time it was, but I had to ride through the mud and the rain out to Sportsman's Hall, and that's 4,000 feet elevation, right? So by the time I'm getting there, that rain was snow. But the hero of that story is a young guy out of Sacramento named Warren Upson, because he took the mail from me and he rode across the Sierras in a blinding snowstorm, and he made it. And that mail made it in 10 days. And you don't want to be in the Sierras in a blinding snowstorm. You can ask the Donner family about that one. Well, I guess maybe I got time to tell you about one more. See, I was also the first guy to ride to the west, to San Francisco. You see, sometimes the mail didn't get there in time to get the boat, and then we had to ride it to San Francisco. Well, this is only the second run, the only second run from the east. And of course, it was snowing in the Sierras again. So I didn't get the mail at Sportsman's Hall till 9 o'clock at night, riding through the mud and the dirt into Sacramento, get there at 1 o'clock. And Mr. Coleman, he was a station master at that point, and he says, hey, we're just starting here. We got to make our reputation. We got to get this done in 10 days. We don't have time to wait for that boat. You're going to have to ride it. So 1 a.m. I take off from Sacramento. I get a fresh horse, take off from Sacramento. There's a little bridge, wooden bridge there at that time. Get across the river, and I'm in the Yolo Tules. Well, the Yolo Tules is a swamp. You know, the Yolo bypass these days, it's all nice and smooth. They made it all into agricultural land. Well, back in those days, it was a swamp. And we didn't have no bridge back then. We didn't have no causeway. But a couple guys had put some planks, laid some planks through the swamp, and they called it the Yolo Plank Turnpike. So I'm going over this, and them planks, they're moving in that soft mud up and down and sideways, and I could have broke my horse's leg 100 times, but luckily I got out of there. And then I'm in the Sacramento Valley, and it's kind of smooth sailing for a while. I crossed Puda Creek at a stop at a little place called Solano House to change horses. That's where Davis is now. That's where I live. Just get outside of Davis and I can see the light. Somebody's put a lantern up on the 3rd floor of the hotel in Sylvierville. So I make it all the way to Sylvierville easily enough. Then I'm change horses again in Vacaville, Gillespie Store. There's still a monument right there on Main Street with my name on it. After Vacaville, I start climbing up into the Vaca Range, and yeah, that road kind of follows the same thing that I-80 follows today, and I get down to Benicia. In Benicia, I hand off my mail to another fella. He takes it across the water, and then he rides into San Francisco. And that was a pretty good day's work, I gotta tell you. That was I think about 125 miles, about 11 hours of straight riding. A good day's work. Well, you see, the Pony Express, we connected California to the United States, but come fall of 1861, they completed the telegraph line across the United States, and there was no more need for the Pony Express. Well, I kind of knew it was on its last legs anyway, because supporting that many men and horses was awful expensive, and our paychecks kept getting farther and farther apart. But I was a horseman. I could get any job. I could get a lot of jobs, but I was never no businessman. So I pretty much ended up with nothing except my name on a lot of them monuments in California. And some folks say that full-size statue of that rider down there at 2nd K in Old Sacramento, they say that looks a lot like me. Yeah!